There's a very long list of witnesses who need to appear before the Commission. There's a long list of witnesses who are under subpoena. The Commission has to be fair to witnesses and ensure that proper process is followed.
Police in South Africa's Limpopo province say the search for 3 people who were swept away by floodwaters is continuing. The remains of a 5-year-old Sianda Baloyi and 2 Baki occupants swept away by floods in Baula village outside Giani and Swinga village near Toyando respectively are yet to be found. Several people have been left homeless. Bridges and roads damaged in the Bembe, Mopani and Sikukune districts. The Disaster Management Centre is yet to update the flood deaths. Mkateko Chauke has the details.
5-year-old Sianda Baloyi was swept away when their house was flooded at Mbaula village outside Giani 2 weeks ago. His mother survived by clinging to a tree. At Swinga village near Toyando, 2 Baki occupants were swept away while they were crossing an overflowing low-lying bridge. The Baki has been retrieved. The search for the bodies continues. Mkateko Chauke, SABC News, Polokwane.
Sustained heavy gunfire and loud explosions have been heard in Niger near the international capital. Outside the capital, Niamey, multiple eyewitness accounts and videos showed air defense systems apparently engaging unidentified projectiles in the early hours of Thursday. The situation reportedly calmed down. Tabiso Lehoko reports.
It is not clear what caused the blasts or if there were any casualties. There has been no official statement from the military government. The gunfire and blasts began shortly after midnight, according to residents of a neighborhood near the Diori Hamani International Airport. The airport houses an Air Force base and is located a few kilometers from the presidential palace. Niger is led by Abdurrahmani Tiani, who seized power in a 2023 coup that ousted the country's elected civilian president.
Authorities in Pakistan have ordered enhanced screening of people entering the country for signs of infection of the deadly Nipah virus. This comes after India confirmed 2 cases, adding to the number of Asian countries stepping up controls. Thailand, Singapore, Hong Kong, Malaysia, Indonesia and Vietnam have also tightened screening at their airports, but an Indian official said there were no plans to introduce screening at their country's airports and said there was no sign of any outbreak. The Nipah virus can cause fever and brain inflammation and has a high mortality rate. There is no vaccine for the virus. Still in Pakistan, the government has ended days of speculation by confirming that the jailed former Prime Minister Imran Khan was transferred to hospital at the weekend to undergo an eye operation. The BBC's Caroline Davies has the details.
The Pakistani government has confirmed that Imran Khan underwent a 20-minute medical procedure on Saturday night. The Information Minister said Mr Khan was examined by eye specialists in prison in Rawalpindi, then taken to a nearby hospital. The minister said Mr Khan gave written consent to the procedure. The head of the hospital told the BBC it involved local anaesthetic. Imran Khan's sisters and lawyers say they were not informed about the hospital visit and have questioned the government's account. His party has demanded transparent, independent medical oversight.
Recapping the top story this hour, the Madlanga Commission in South Africa says significant progress has been made following the establishment of a task team assigned with implementing the Commission's recommendations to President Cyril Ramaphosa. For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Jolani Tulo Wepe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
In our sports headline, Zimbabwe businessman has donated a bus to Highlanders as a token of appreciation. And the American Express pass has been raised compared to the 2025 tournament. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
Connecting Africa to the world. Africa in Business with Thami Ngubeni brings you the latest insights on Africa's economy. Business, trade, and investment opportunities that put the continent first. Africa in Business with Thami Ngubeni.
It is a very good afternoon to you, Zimbabwe. Good afternoon, Kenya, Benin, Senegal, Eritrea. Good afternoon to you, Zimbabwe. Good afternoon, Africa. Welcome to Africa in Business on Channel Africa. I'm Thami Ngubeni. Coming up this hour, we'll be taking a look at the South African Reserve Bank's Monetary Policy Committee. They've left the interest rate unchanged at 6.75%. And Zambia in talks with Afrixim Bank to restructure $45 million of their commercial debt. Do engage with us on all our various social media platforms on X, Instagram and YouTube. You'll find us at Channel Africa 1. On Facebook we are at Channel Africa. Welcome to the Thursday edition.
Stay ahead with Africa in Business, where Thami Ngubeni unpacks your go-to source for Africa's economic trends and development.
We begin here this afternoon with the South African Reserve Bank's Monetary Policy Committee. They've left the repo rate unchanged at 6.75%. Last year, the central bank reduced rates by 25 basis points, bringing the repo rate to 6.75% and the prime lending rate to 10.25%. The Congress of South African Trade Unions, COSATU, had called for at least a 25 basis point cut. And why? Well, they cited various issues such as the rising cost of living and particularly the surging price of electricity and transport, which have all outpaced overall inflation. Those were the basis for their arguments for a cut, which was not to be. To dissect this further, we joined this afternoon by Davi Ruert, Director and Chief Economist of the Efficient Group. A very good afternoon to you, Davi. Good to have you with us. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to you.
So let's start off by taking a look at the MPC and them leaving the interest rate unchanged at 6.75%. What's your take on their move?
I think it was expected, and I think that's the right decision by the Reserve Bank Monetary Policy Committee. I think a very important point to make here. Well, there are two issues here. The first one, if you look at the normal macroeconomic aggregates, what's been happening to inflation, what's been happening to exchange rate, what's been happening to inflation expectations, the oil price, all that sort of stuff, then I really do believe that there is room to cut interest rates. And I think we are still in a downward trajectory as far as interest rates are concerned. And I think over the next couple of months, we will see at least 25 basis points reductions in interest rates. So the argument for lower interest rates certainly are there. But there's another very important reason why the Reserve Bank decided not to cut. And that is that we are currently in a completely different macroeconomic, macro monetary policy environment. And that is that from now on, South Africa is targeting a 3% inflation rate and not a 3 to 6% inflation rate. Now that changes everything, because now the Reserve Bank has to cement this new inflation target of 3% into the economy. The Reserve Bank must make sure that actual inflation gets down to 3%. There's a bit of an uptick in inflation. I'm not too concerned about that. But very importantly, the Reserve Bank must make sure that everybody believes them. In other words, that inflation expectations are also coming down. And I think that's the reason. That's the main reason why the Reserve Bank did not cut. They want to cement this new target. They want to make sure everybody is on the same side as the Reserve Bank. They want to make sure that everybody believes the Reserve Bank, that they will be successful in doing this. And I agree with all of that. So rather sit on your hands for now and make a big fuss about this new inflation target that is going to be at 3%. And then once you get, everybody believes you and actual inflation starts getting lower, closer to 3%, then there will be more room to cut. So this is more of a psychological game than anything else. Central banking is not a science. It's more of an art than anything else. And this is a very good example of how Lesetja Kganyago, the governor of the Reserve Bank, is playing. And that's the right thing to do, to get everybody on his side to get inflation lower to 3%.
On a practical level, Davi, what type of time frames are we looking at for the stabilization, for this robust confidence in the economy to be firmly established in order for the repo rate to be dropped?
Well, most of the heavy lifting has been done already. We have currently inflation at 3.6%. I think it will start coming down again within the next a couple of months or so. I'm not too concerned about short-term thing. We know that inflation expectations, which was running at 7-8% not too long ago, is currently running around about 4, just about 4% or so. So much of the difficult work is behind us now. And if you ask economists, if you ask people out there what they think about inflation and interest rates, then gradually everybody is getting on the side of the Reserve Bank. So in terms of the time frame, I think we are pretty much there. It's just that it's relatively new, this new inflation targeting regime is relatively new, only announced last year in October. And I think that the Reserve Bank within 2 or 3 months or so will certainly be in a position where they can start cutting rates. And that's why I say we can certainly expect a rate cut in 2 months' time. The first one.
So you've mentioned a lot of domestic factors as influencing or probably influencing Lesotho Kganyago's decision. But how much did global economic conditions, such as the United States, their interest rates were left unchanged at 3.5 to 3.75 target range, between that range, or even the commodity price fluctuations, how much of an impact did that have on the SARB's decision?
Well, the Reserve Bank is going to tell you that they're only interested in inflation. And of course, that's a primary thing that they're looking at when they make decisions as far as monetary policy is concerned. But the reality is that the Reserve Bank certainly keeps an eye on international oil prices and what the Federal Reserve has been doing. And the fact that the Fed did not cut, for example, it's another reason not to cut either. But there's something very important, and I'm coming back to this change in inflation targets in South Africa. Remember, if you have inflation targets, a new inflation targets at 3%, and the market believes you that you're going to get inflation down to 3%, it then also means that your currency is likely to be less volatile. If your currency is less volatile, then you remove a lot of risk of investing in South Africa. And that's the reason why we're seeing, part of the reason why we see such a nice run on our currency, why the rand has been doing so well, why the capital market has been doing so well, why the equity markets are doing so well, because the risk of investing in South Africa has been reduced. And that's the reason why we have lower inflation targets. Of course, these other variables also play a significant role, but the playing ground has been change completely with these lower inflation targets, and the Reserve Bank now, with inflation coming down eventually, we will be faced with a more stable currency in future, and the financial market certainly has so far voted in favor of the Reserve Bank and this new regime. And in fact, the financial markets believe the Reserve Bank. But for the other international variables, without a doubt, the Reserve Bank is keeping an eye on that, but that is becoming less important for South Africa going forward as our currency stabilizes more, and that's what we are currently seeing as well.
Let's wrap up our conversation this afternoon, Davi, by putting COSATU into this conversation. They'd been calling for a rate cut. Talk to us about the impact that the prime lending rate is having on households as well as businesses, and COSATU's argument.
Yeah, I listened to your introduction where COSATU says that the cost of living has been going up, and that's the reason why we need to cut interest rates and to support people. And now that is a valid reason, so that is true. But I'm afraid that the solution that the COSATU is proposing, that is simply wrong. So they want to reduce interest rates in order to make it easier for people to survive, while the correct answer must be that we have to do something about the cost of electricity, for example. We have to do something about the uncompetitive macroeconomic environment of South Africa. We have to do something about the inefficiency of the local authorities, the inefficiencies of COSATU's own members in many instances. That's the way to go about this. That will make life more affordable for the normal worker, and that in fact will create an environment that we can start cutting interest rates even further. So yes, they are right. The cost of living is certainly squeezing a lot of people, but lowering interest rates is not the answer to that. Fix the other macroeconomic policy, macroeconomic problems, and you will fix the cost of living problem as well.
Davi Rood, always a pleasure. Thank you, sir.
My pleasure, thank you.
Have a great one. That's Davi Rood. He's Director and Chief Economist of the Efficient Group, bringing us to exactly 17 minutes after 4 p.m.
Es-tu préoccupé par quelque chose? Es-tu passionné par les questions qui comptent? As-tu une voix qui mérite d'être entendue? Eh bien, nous avons la plateforme parfaite pour toi. Téléphone-nous ou fais-nous un WhatsApp au +27 66 408 87 42 et nous te rappellerons. Sois dans la conversation.
Salut Channel Africa, ici Beno le diamant rouge et Binal Sport depuis le Cameroun, le pays des lions. Voilà.
Sois dans la conversation. Il ne s'agit pas seulement de parler, mais c'est ta chance d'exprimer ton point de vue, de partager tes opinions et de t'engager avec une communauté qui valorise ton avis. Suivez-nous sur les réseaux sociaux, visitez notre site www.channelafrica.co.za et préparez-vous à partager vos points de vue sur Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
African enterprise meets global opportunity. Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
It is 18 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African time as we continue our focus on South Africa's economy. It is showing early signs of positive growth. Officials said this at the start of the extended cabinet lekgotla in Pretoria. The two-day meeting at the Sefako Makato Presidential Guest House brings together ministers, their deputies, provincial premiers, as well as members of the South African Local Government Association to discuss the government's priorities for the year, including boosting the economy and improving local government. President Cyril Ramaphosa and Deputy President Paul Mashatile presided over the gathering. Our politics reporter, Ntebo Mokobo, was there and filed this report.
Despite the stubbornly high unemployment rate, poverty levels and the sluggish growth, government says the economy is on the mend, as Minister in the Presidency Khumbudzo Ntshabeni explains.
We had a presentation from the Minister of Finance on the macroeconomic framework of the country, focused on what are the things that we have noticed last year. For instance, the cost of borrowing for the government of South Africa has reduced drastically. When we started with the budget last year, we started with over 13% cost of borrowing. Today, as we sit, we are at 9%, showing that our fiscal prudence and fiscal management is strengthening.
The minister also refuted claims and suggestions that the improved economic performance could be attributed to the challenges faced by the United States, insisting that credit should go to government's relentless work to turn the country's economic hardships around.
We've seen a year-on-year 2.1% growth on the GDP over the same period. And also we have seen, in terms of the performance of the rand has stabilized. There are those who want to claim that it has stabilized because of the problems in the U.S., stabilized because of the fiscal management that the country is doing. So we've looked at that and said, then what becomes the fiscal envelope that we're going to then prioritize and fund? So we are discussing those.
Minister Ntshabeni also said after the IMF's showing of appreciation of the steady growth and upwardly revising its growth projections, this spells that the country is on course to meet its National Development Plan objectives of halving poverty and unemployment by 2030.
Our ambition to achieve the 3% growth by end of the term is possible. We have been seeing a revision upwards by the IMF continuously, even when we went to the MTBPS, and also now they've done again another upward revision. It is very bolstering for a government in terms of our confidence and our ability to proceed. Equally, Stats SA in December released a report that has shown that even though we have not eliminated poverty, we have started to chip away on the levels of poverty in the country. There's been an improvement. So therefore, in terms of our targets for the NDP, we are on course. So that is progress, and that's what encourages us as we gather to have this conversation.
And as the country celebrates the 30 years of the adoption of the Constitution, Minister Ntshabeni said it would be up to South Africans to dialogue on whether their constitution, which is revered as the best in the world, still serves its purpose, with so many South Africans trapped in poverty and living in fear of criminality.
In the country, we are going to undergo the national dialogue that is going to communities. If South Africans are saying the current constitution as it is doesn't work for them, they will propose that amendments must be done. We continuously, through Parliament, call for the proposals for amendments of various sections of the constitution, and South Africans debate. But we are undergoing a national dialogue process that we must discuss this beautiful constitution of ours. Does it still remain beautiful, and is it beneficial for South Africans given the revolving situation that we have? And South Africans will make that determination, and as a government elected by the people of South Africa, will have to respond.
The cabinet lekgotla ends on Thursday, and its outcomes will form the basis of President Cyril Ramaphosa's State of the Nation address scheduled for the 12th of next month. I am Tebo Mokobo in Pretoria.
African enterprise meets global opportunity. Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
It is exactly 22 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African Time. The African Minerals Development Centre, the AMDC, in a partnership with the African Union Commission, hosted a validation and advocacy workshop on the sustainable management of mineral resources and their alignment with the Africa Mining Vision, which was adopted by the African Union in 2009. The workshop aimed to validate the preliminary findings of an ongoing evaluation of South Africa's mining sector, as well as assessing its alignment with the principles and tools of the vision. For more on this, we're joined by Thami Ngubeni, the Programs Officer at the Africa Mining Development Centre. A very good afternoon to you, so welcome to Africa in Business.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Well, it's great to be with you and have you with us. Let's start off with an understanding of what it is that prompted African Minerals Development Centre to conduct this validation and advocacy workshop on South Africa's mining sector, and why now? Why at this time?
So we have had a tool called the African Minerals Governance Framework since 2018. It is a self-assessment tool that member states will use to see how far they've gone to align with the tenets of the Africa Mining Vision. Now, the question of why now is for the past 2 years, we've gone through validations of 11 other countries. And in those 11 countries, the prognosis that has come from the assessments that were done there have shown us that we are now in a mature state to have member states give that evaluation to themselves. South Africa being one of the biggest mining countries on the continent, in addition to being the past host of the G20, which had the G20 Critical Minerals Framework, is the reason why we were like, it is time to have South Africa have this evaluation. And of course, there are ongoing scenarios within the country itself that are also bringing forth the need to have the South African mining sector be evaluated in alignment with the Africa Mining Vision. So that's how we actually targeted South Africa. And I must say it couldn't have been done either any better or at a better time.
So let's take a look at some of the outcomes of these workshops, specifically in relation to the mining sector in South Africa. What was unfolded?
So, as expected, South Africa is indicating that its beneficiation vis-a-vis its industrialization in alignment to the minerals that are mined here is at an advanced stage in alignment with the Africa Mining Vision. All the other tenets that are needed vis-a-vis ensuring that mineral resources are aligned to not just industrialization, but they're also aligned to the industrial sector, they're also aligned to the energy sector. All that is in alignment, and it's well and good as expected for how big South Africa's mining sector is. The only challenge, which of course also makes sense, is in artisanal and small-scale mining, something that was not recognized fully until I think around 2002, according to the report. Of course, I mean, anyone who knows the historical precedent of why that was the case would understand that, of course, that was because large-scale mining was predominant in South Africa. And of course, we are still in a position to have South Africa then not only accept how to deal with the artisanal and small-scale mining sector, but to start building from the diagnosis that this African Minerals Governance Framework Assessment is showing. So everything else seems to be on course in terms of meeting what we would expect the Africa Mining Vision to achieve for South Africa. But artisanal and small-scale mining is definitely something that we now need to work on as a collective, both as South Africa, within the region, and of course AMTC is very willing and ready to support in that regard.
And what is your focus, Mr. Ngubeni, as you do these evaluations? Is it more around evaluating and creating pathways for continental or cross-border trade as far as minerals are concerned, or are you more outward focused in how you could better appeal to the global market?
So if you think about the fact that as a market, Africa is a 1.5 billion person plus market, if we talk about being a targeting the global market. And of course, the existence of the expanding African Continental Free Trade Area and its tenets as well. Our initial focus is, let us get things right for the minerals that are meant for Africa's development. And then, of course, we will not shun or shy away from the global market as it stands in terms of what it requires from South Africa or the region or the continent as a whole. But we now need, as per the Africa Mining Vision, to ensure that these minerals are also working for ourselves in a manner that they would work to where they are being imported and where we would say has been the traditional market for these minerals.
So your approach is more development versus extractive?
Very much so. That has always been the case of the AMV. It's a sad state of affairs that having been adopted in 2009, we are only seeing the value of the AMV now, as in looking at it from a developmental perspective, because when it came out in 2009, sadly, the narratives that were being thrown out there was Africa is going all nationalist on minerals, which then becomes ironic because enter 2022 onwards, we are now seeing that nationalism on minerals is actually the way to go to secure development for either a region or, in particular, in this case, the continent.
So let's focus on the workshop once again. You hosted this in collaboration with the EU Technical Assistance Facility to support the African, Free Trade, the AFCFTA. How does aligning South Africa's mining support the objectives of the African Continental Free Trade Area?
South Africa, being one of the top 5 industrialized nations in the continent, has to become a hub that demonstrates that the minerals that are being extracted in South Africa are going to, let's talk about ferroalloys, for instance, create ferroalloys in South Africa, move them across the continent as per the demand that is required for them in African countries that are industrializing. But that should be working as well within the realm of the AFCFTA, as well as within the realm of knowing that the AFCFTA is graduating to becoming a customs union, right, in a few years. So once we get this right for countries like South Africa, for countries like Nigeria, countries like Morocco, countries like Kenya, right, we then start getting to understand that we can then run the narrative that as much as we have partners that we are going to be servicing when it comes to ensuring that our export markets are still maintained, we are also now ensuring that within the continent, we are working starting from the low-hanging fruit of those entities or countries that are advanced in industrializing and helping the rest of the continent to industrialize.
All right, we'll leave it at that for this afternoon. Mr. Mkhululi Ngubeni, thank you so much. Really interesting developments as far as mining and the African continent is concerned. We thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's Mkhululi Ngubeni. He is the Programs Officer at Africa Mining Development Center. He takes us to exactly 4:30 p.m. Central African time, just in time for us to head over to the markets desk, where Nosipho Zuma is standing by with your latest market indicators.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Thami. Good afternoon. In your business indicators, the SAWA, $1 is trading at 15 Rand 86 in South Africa. In Botswana is trading at 13 Pula 07. In Namibia, it is trading at 15 Namibian dollars 86. The Zambian kwacha is trading at 19 kwacha 698 to the US dollar. In Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 205. In Ethiopia, it is trading at 154 bir 77. In Uganda, it is trading at 3,000 shilling 545. In Tanzania, it is trading at 2,000 shilling 547. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 398. In Egypt, the dollar is trading at 46 Egyptian pound 90. In Tunisia, it is trading at 2 dinar 83. In Algeria, it is trading at 128 dinar 43. In Morocco, the dollar will cost you 8 dirham 90. In Angola, the dollar is trading at 912 kwanza, while the Congolese franc is trading at 2,208 to the US dollar. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $5,520 and platinum at $2,763 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $69.93 a barrel. Now, for any stories you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I'm Nosipho Zuma.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
And standing by from the sports desk with the business of sport, a very good Thursday afternoon to you, Figile Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Afternoon, Thami. First up, it's football news. Zimbabwe businessman Wignell Chivayo has purchased a new team bus for Highlanders Football Club. Chivayo says he bought a brand new 75-seater higher executive coach, which will be delivered immediately. He says on his X handle, he is pleased to share a small surprise to the team. He has purchased and made arrangement for the immediate delivery of a brand new 75 higher executive bus worth $285,000 fitted with luxurious amenities. Chivayo also announced that the club will receive $300,000 to cover the annual salary and signing on fee for newly appointed head coach Benjani Mwaruwari. Bus for sale, Chivayo announced a $1 million sponsorship package for Highlanders and has so far disbursed $500,000 to the club. Orlando Pirates have opened a thrilling new chapter in Soweto football after signing a massive $14.5 million deal with Amstel, the club's official beer partner. Orlando Stadium, the beating heart of Soweto football, has entered a new chapter, reborn as the Orlando Amstel Arena. Stadium Management CEO Bertie Grobbelaar has seemingly cleared the confusion around a potential conflict of sponsors after Orlando Pirates announced the renaming of their traditional home ground.
Significance to the venue. Remember, we manage this venue as the venue authority on behalf of the city of Johannesburg. Historically, different to rugby clubs, rugby teams and cricket teams, football clubs do not own the venues they play in. So we've got an agreement with Orlando Pirates that this is their home ground. But this creates a problem in the broader commercial perspective because the naming rights sits with the venue, and now if you've got a naming rights partner that's in conflict with the club sponsorships, it creates conflict and it creates management of that relationship.
The naming right and signing of sponsorship is between Orlando Pirates and Amstel. Grobbelaar explains.
Significance to the venue. Remember, we manage this venue as the venue authority on behalf of the city of Johannesburg. Historically, different to rugby clubs, rugby teams and cricket teams, football clubs do not own the venues they play in. So we've got an agreement with Orlando Pirates that this is their home ground. But this creates a problem in the broader commercial perspective because the naming rights sits with the venue, and now if you've got a naming rights partner that's in conflict with the club sponsorships, it creates conflict and it creates management of that relationship.
The Sunrisers Eastern Cape didn't only win a third SA20 title in 4 seasons when they beat the Pretoria Capitals in the final at Newlands in Cape Town. They also picked up a big winner's check to be shared among the players and coaches. The runners-up, the Capitals, will also share a decent amount between them, as will the other 4 teams, the Paarl Royals, Joburg Super Kings, Durban Super Giants and My Cape Town. For their efforts over the season, the Sunrisers of Tristan Stubbs and coach Adrian Burrell won an amount of $2.2 million. The 4 other teams will share $3.4 million between them. The winner's check is the highest prize purse in franchise cricket behind the Indian Premier League. Let's end with golf news. This year's American Express purse has been raised by $400,000 compared to the 2025 tournament, with a sprint to the finish line in store at the stadium course. The PGA Tour's West Coast swing has kicked off in an exciting style at the American Express, with 3 days of pulsating action so far across 3 of California's standout courses. As ever, the scoring has been particularly low on the Pete Dye Stadium course and the Nicholas Tournament course and La Quinta Country Club, with any number of players. The American Express $9.2 million total payout in 2026 is marginally higher than last week's Sony Open in Hawaii at $9.1 million, but will remain the second lowest payout in a full field tournament until the Valspar Championship in March. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Fikile Lungwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. From markets to innovation. From markets to innovation. Africa in Business with Thami Ngubeni covers it all. With Africa's future in focus, Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Thank you to Nosipho Zuma and Figile Lingwati. They bring us to exactly 4:37 Central African Time. We continue focusing on the African Development Bank. They say that education on the African continent must translate into jobs, economic growth and poverty reduction. That is, if the continent is to realize its full potential. Speaking at the 20th anniversary of the African Council for Distance Education at the University of South Africa in Pretoria on Thursday, the bank's Director for Human Development, Babatunde Omilola, emphasized the need to better align education systems with labour market demands, especially for Africa's rapidly growing youth population. He outlined the bank's priorities, including mobilizing more development financing and strengthening Africa's financial architecture. Channel Africa's reporter Michael Mbewe spoke with AFDB's Director for Human Development, Babatunde Omilola.
For us at the African Development Bank, our interest really is to make sure that people in Africa are well trained, well educated, whether through distance education or open education or any forms of education, so that they can be gainfully employed, they can contribute significantly to rapid economic growth on the continent, and they can also contribute to reducing poverty and inequality on the continent. What we have seen over time is that education in most cases has not necessarily translated into employment generation, into poverty reduction, into rapid economic growth for Africa. And so our role as African Development Bank is to work with ECDE and other organizations working promoting education as an engine of economic growth, as an engine of rapid development. At the African Development Bank, we are focusing on 4 cardinal points, and all of those 4 cardinal points are really very relevant to the improvement of education in Africa. We are focusing on mobilizing more capital, more financing for Africa, because currently our callable capital at the African Development Bank is about $318 billion, which can only respond to 2 or 3% of Africa's developmental needs. And so we need to scale up the resources. Our second cardinal point is focusing on strengthening African financial architecture. And the third one, which is really relevant for this meeting, is how to harness the demographic dividend in Africa, youth dividend in Africa. Because we have a continent of 1.4 billion people, and most of them are young people. How do we train them, educate them, make them to contribute to the rapid development of the continent? And fourthly, our aim is to focus more on infrastructure in Africa, including digital infrastructure, which is really useful for today's education in terms of AI, in terms of also digital penetration and internet usage in different African countries. So we are here to really collaborate and partner with ACDE and other institutions on how to promote education for development in Africa.
It is exactly 4:41 Central African time as we turn our focus now to the Pan-African communications firm Upper Group. They've announced the promotion of Malika Boyard to Group Account Director in their Public Relations and Strategic Communications Unit. Boyard's appointment follows her contribution to several high-profile communications campaigns across the continent, and it does come amid some growing demand for strong strategic messaging to elevate Africa's presence globally. She joins us now to discuss the role of strategic communications in shaping Africa's global image and APO's group's efforts to strengthen Pan-African service delivery. A very good afternoon to you and a huge congratulations. Welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Thami, for hosting me today.
No, it certainly is a huge pleasure. So congratulations, first and foremost, on your promotion. What does it mean, the promotion to Group Account Director? What does it represent for African leadership and, I guess, career progression as well within the communications industry?
Thank you so much for the question. So actually, I'll start with when I joined APO Group. So they reached out to me in 2022 to join their team. And at that time, I didn't hesitate at all because the vision and the dream of the founder and chairman matched my personal vision and the goal of promoting and showcasing the positive side of Africa. So this is when my journey with APO started, and since then it has been an intense but in the best way, because it's a truly Pan-African environment when standards are high and the pace is fast. So I'm originally from Morocco, and I've worked across communication, marketing, and stakeholder engagement for close to a decade. So coming into APO Group allowed me to apply that experience, but into a continental scale. So when it took me to grow into the Group Account Director, for me it was consistency and ownership, delivering quality work, learning from every campaign, and stepping up from execution to strategy. It's also took...
Please
yes,
go ahead,
sorry.
ma'am. No, please do go ahead, ma'am.
So it also, it also took strong collaboration because our work depends on teamwork across market, language, and stakeholders. And for me, going back to the communications strategy aspect, actually, so strategic communications involves engaging with broader audiences. It's not just about engaging with the media, but it's also about reaching its stakeholders, the target audience, the government officials, and the decision makers. So it's about creating detailed plans and executing them to ensure the company's message is delivered to the right people and in the most effective way.
And how do you see the role of strategic communications evolving in shaping Africa's narrative on the global stage? You've just mentioned now the type of target market that you're looking at. You're looking at decision makers. You're looking at government officials, those who actually have a say in where to go and what to do.
So actually, strategic communication in Africa is moving from a large transactional media relation focus to an integrated storytelling that ties together strategy, policy, business line, and incredible narratives. It's also driven by nowadays where we see more of digital being used and data-driven insights. So it's important that companies and stakeholders do consider those aspects when they're building their communication strategies.
And so from your experience, what would you highlight as some of the key elements of delivering Pan-African communications campaign? I think you highlighted something really interesting there, that it's more about storytelling. And so there needs to then be a congruence and an alignment with that communication. It can't just be sporadic.
So actually, for me, the most important elements to deliver a strategic Pan-African communication campaign is to know to which even if it's Pan-African, but there is always different audiences that we are reaching to. So it's important to know the audience and therefore to draft and compile the clear messages that are designed for those target audience in order to meet their needs, their expectation, and what they are looking for.
And what have you found to be the biggest challenges in doing that? And what a great point that you made, that Africa is not a homogenous, continent. It's dynamic, and there are a lot of divergent beliefs and divergent ways of doing things. What have you found to be most challenging for you?
So actually, it's true that when you look at Africa, it's one continent, but with 54 different countries, 54 different cultures, different languages, different people. So the thing is that I came from a background where I studied in an American university in Morocco. And already within the university, we were meeting people from different regions, different culture. And it was one of the main elements because we were all living all together in a campus. So we got to use to cohabit with people that are from different culture and understand them. So then when joining APO, that part of my studies helped me within the company because, as we said, we are APO group. I'm working at APO Group and I'm based in Morocco, but we have collaborators and team members present in many African countries. We are about 25 within the PR and Strategic Department based in different African countries from north to south, east to west. And each one of us brings their own knowledge of the different African culture. So we group that into APO group, and that is one of our strengths that help us deliver clear messages for our audiences on a Pan-African level.
It's just so clear that innovation and having clear operational systems are essential if you're going to be operating at the scale that you're operating at as the APO group. So as we wrap up our conversation this afternoon, Malika, what advice would you give to young African professionals who are looking to build careers in strategic communications and PR? And perhaps let's even centralize that a little bit more on the African continent and for the African continent.
Thank you so much for this question, because actually it's a very important one and the youth are our future. So first I would say is that they need to master the fundamentals, which is for me writing, research, critical thinking, because if they can write clearly, if they can think strategically, they will always be valuable. The second point is that, as I said, they need to build on digital capabilities because digital is a growing sector nowadays. So they need to understand the platform, the content strategy, the analytics, the social media listening, everything. So today's communicators need to be both creative and data aware of what's happening. The third point for me that is important for them is to protect their credibility. This industry runs on trust, so they need to be accurate, ethical, and consistent. So finally, for me, they need to stay curious and seek mentors. For me, the people who grow fastest are those who keep learning and take feedback well. Whatever the feedback is, they need to take it from a positive side and deliver on reliability.
All right, Malika Boyad, we thank you so much for your time and wishing you all the best. What an exciting portfolio you have, and continued strength and growth to you and the group. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Thami, for hosting me, and thank you, everyone.
It's been a pleasure. She is Malika Boyad, Group Account Director in APO Group's Public Relations and Strategic Communications. She takes us to exactly 4:50 p.m. Oh, a.m. No, it's p.m. My goodness. Is it time to go home already? Not quite. In just a moment, we've got Vuy de Frick coming up, and Joël will be giving us a sneak peek at what they've got in store for us.
Channel Africa is evolving, and so are you. Stay connected wherever you are with our brand new website and mobile app. Stream your favorite shows, catch up on African news, culture, and conversations, all at your fingertips.
Africa is just a tap away.
Your world, your stories, now on the go.
Stay connected wherever you are.
Visit channelafrica.co.za or download the Channel Africa app today. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
It is 9 minutes to 5 p.m. Central African time. We've got Joël standing by to give us a sneak peek at what Vue d'Afrique has in store for us this Thursday. Bonjour Joël.
Bonjour Thami, bonjour à tous les auditeurs de Channel Africa. Tout à l'heure sur Vue d'Afrique, on parlera de ce qui s'est passé à Niamey. En tout cas, on essaiera d'avoir des explications de notre invité sur les violentes détonations qui ont été entendues dans la nuit de mercredi à jeudi. Et aussi, on parlera de la reprise des cours du Gabon. La reprise des cours au Gabon après la signature d'un accord de sortie de crise, mais aussi au Nigeria, l'armée reconnaît pour la première fois l'existence d'un complot visant à renverser le président Tinubu. Et aussi, dans la deuxième partie, évidemment, avec Jolino Sungu, il s'agira du sport et de certaines annonces de la CAF. C'est tout à l'heure sur Vue d'Afrique. Merci Thami.
Merci beaucoup. That's Joël coming up on Vue d'Afrique at the top of the hour.
Africa means business. Tune into Africa in Business with Thami Ngubeni for the future of the African economy. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
We turn our focus now to Zambia. The country says it remains hopeful of reaching an agreement on debt restructuring with Afrexim Bank, even as the matter is currently under arbitration. The Southern African nation, which defaulted in the year 2020, has already secured agreements with creditors covering 94% of the debt that it seeks to restructure. Meanwhile, the International Monetary Fund has approved the sixth and final review of Zambia's extended credit facility, clearing the way for a $190 million disbursement. For more on this, we joined on the line by economic analyst based in Zambia, Yusuf Dodea. A very good afternoon to you, Yusuf. Good to have you with us. Welcome.
It's great to be with you. Thank you very much for having me on your show.
So, Yusuf, what does the IMF's approval of Zambia's sixth and final extended credit facility review signal about the country's macroeconomic reforms?
Well, I think as everybody appreciates, Zambia has had a debt burden ranging from about 16 to $20 billion and has had this burden for several years. And we've been grappling with how we could restructure this debt to allow the economy to grow and be able to service the debt. And so we've been working with the IMF for at least the last 3 or 4 years. And we've reached a point where we've restructured most of the debt, and we have just this lingering bit to deal with before we can be on a more secure road to development. So the IMF's extended credit facility comes to an end pretty soon. There's $190 million that Zambia is signing off on to be able to complete some of the activities that are connected with debt restructuring and the ability to strengthen the management of the Zambian economy so that it can produce resources to be able to service debt going forwards. So what we do hope to see is that this 190 million is going to be applied to improving the fight against corruption. It's going to be used to strengthen the law enforcement agencies. It's going to be used to strengthen the role of Parliament in managing public debt. We do have an act in place that was enacted in the last 2 or 3 years called the Public Debt Management Act, which compels Parliament to approve any further debt that government wants to take before that debt can actually be acquired. Beyond that, we see that the IMF support is likely to strengthen the role of parliamentary committees that will not only look at approving debt contraction, but also looking at monitoring what is going on in terms of how that debt is being used and being able to detect any failures that can be dealt with before it becomes serious. So really, Parliament gets a lot more strength than it has had in the past in making sure that they're providing oversight to Zambia's debt going forwards. But clearly, the future looks great. Look, Zambia is the third largest producer of copper in the world. We have a situation now where the demand for copper is going up. We've seen copper prices shoot from about $7,000 to $8,000 a ton 2 years ago, reaching about $14,000 a ton now. And there are prospects that the price of copper is likely to go up even further in the next couple of years with the advent of the electronic vehicle production, which is in full swing in the Far East and in Europe.
I'd like us, my apologies, Yusuf, I really want us just to talk about this deal a little bit more before our time together comes to an end today. You'll remember that last year there was a debate on whether Afrexim Bank's loan was commercial or concessional. Can you take us through the terms of this deal and how those terms compare with agreements that have been reached with other creditors?
Well, the big thing is that the Afrexim Bank is a bank that is working purely on commercial basis. So the idea of debt write-off, the idea of interest write-off is literally not on the cards. So what we're trying to do is come to some arrangement with Afrexim Bank that is going to satisfy their board of directors, their shareholders, that Zambia is going to make good of the debt that we have. But the concessions we're looking for is time and a mechanism that is satisfactory to both sides so that we can be able to address the liquidation of this debt in time. And this is really what we're looking at. We're looking at how this, the prospects of the global economy in the next couple of years that look favorable for Zambia, and that Zambia would be able to sit down with the Afrexim Bank and come up with a mechanism that is they will be quite satisfied with. I don't see this being a train smash. I think we're going to achieve some kind of agreement, within the next couple of months.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Thank you so much, Yusuf Dodia, economist and economic analyst based in Zambia, highlighting the deal between Afrexim Bank and Zambia. Yourself a splendid afternoon, sir. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's Yusuf Dodia. He takes us to exactly 1 minute to 5 p.m. Central African time. Well, Africa, this is where we leave it for today as far as business is concerned. Let's meet again tomorrow, same time, same place, as we dissect the leading business stories on the African continent. We make way now for Vous d'Afrique avec les Joël. Restez connectés. Au revoir.
Conversations are happening, and Channel Africa is at the heart of them. We tell the African story with clarity, pride, and purpose, reaching audiences that matter to your brand. Partner with us and connect your business with listeners across borders in multiple languages and markets. For partnership opportunities, sponsorship, or sales, email us at partnership@channelafrica.co.za. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Vue d'Afrique, un magazine des actualités en français sur Channel Africa. Rendez-vous du